Hey there, I'm Xochitl Gonzalez, a writer, journalist, researcher, and this is what I'm clocking this week, the week of July 28th-ish. I'm a little late this week. So I just wanted to start out because somebody last week made a comment on my IG. I was talking about DSA and democracy, and they were like, I don't understand your views. It was in response with me being particularly frustrated. I think it's turning into my obsession, actually, with people self-identifying themselves as moderate Democrats. It's because, I don't know, unless that might have flown in 2016. I might have even described myself that way in 2016, but I literally just don't even know what the frick that means anymore. We're in the throes of fascism, so that makes you moderate to what? What is moderation in that context? That said, I actually thought, this is a question worth answering because some people have been with me since I was literally an event planner, and people tend to come here for news and analysis now, and they are like, who am I? Some of you are new and don't know who I am. And so I want to start by saying where I come from pretty much all the time is, as a kid, I was never a big celebrity person. I was never much of a fan. My fandom began and ended with Ralph Tresvant, because we all need a man with sensitivity, and ended with the death of Kurt Cobain, and that didn't go well for me. After Kurt Cobain was the zenith, that ended blind devotion for me in general. And I was raised in a very blue-collar union household by an Army veteran from Puerto Rico who fought in World War II and liberated a concentration camp. To say that there were two things that were big in my household and ingrained in us every day, which is you have to participate in democracy. I literally almost died for your right to vote. I only got the right to vote by coming to this mainland, literally participating in democracy in my blood. And the other part is inequity and discrimination and bias and hate literally will destroy a society. My mother was like this. My mother's sister is like this. Fairness, equitability, the space to be yourself was just drummed into us from the earliest age. And I think that those kind of define my values. And more than anything, I never really have been very dogmatic or rigid with my politics, particularly because my mom then went on and became a pretty militant, high-profile socialist. She ran for vice president of the United States in 1984, the same year as Geraldine Ferraro. And it was a kind of recalcitrant political party, and it involved her not being able to be with her kid, whether she wanted that or not. That's a whole other thing that I wrote about in The Atlantic. You're welcome to check it out. But it turned me off to any system or organization that demands that kind of rigidity and devotion. I'd always agreed with Camus in this regard. I thought this was a kind of a cool video that explains the way that I feel about these kinds of things.
Can the people alive today be treated as acceptable casualties in the pursuit of a better future? Right. Sartre and the Marxists, they said yes. History has a direction. The revolution requires sacrifice. Camus, he said no. He said any system of thought that subordinates living people to a hypothetical future has already committed moral error. Any atrocity becomes permissible. Any amount of present suffering can be rationalized as necessary input to the glorious modeled output.
In any case, what is not flexible about me are my values, but what is flexible are the kinds of candidates that I'll vote for and support. Particularly now, we are a rapidly changing society. I'm not a person that votes on electability. I am a person that votes on what do we need as a collective to fix things right now. And we right now are so wildly broken, not one person is going to fix it. And more of the same is only going to make it worse. And so I am very excited to get us out of this dysfunction. And I'm excited for anybody that's talking about working people right now, because working Americans are suffering. And that always, whenever I say that, always means women, Latinas, Black people, immigrants. We will always be suffering more. We always are. So I am here for anybody that's prioritizing those communities right now, because it has gotten, we're at the brink. We're at the brink. And I am always thinking about young people. I see young people having less opportunities than I had just, a generation and a half ago. I'm almost 50. It breaks my heart to see young people not feel that they can do anything in this country or maybe even out in the world. And so I am looking at this, and I am looking at everything that defines my politics in this moment is also looking at how do we end this gerontocracy, because we are in the middle of a technological industrial revolution, and it is not going to be handled well by people that literally are in hospice care and missing work because they're like in hospice care. It's just too much. So the Republican Party has become like a right-wing white Christian nationalist party, and unfortunately, most of the Democratic leadership are become so aligned with special interest and corporate interest that it is very hard to even see them doing much opposition. So I've really been happy to see young, truly progressive candidates win elections, gain traction, and galvanize young people to vote and participate in democracy. This is exciting to me because it's exactly what our democracy needs right now, right? And because, I don't know, I know people are getting so distraught, but in my opinion, what I have always seen is like, there's this whole Red Scare thing is also so crazy to me because we are a capitalist society. We're so far and long away from being a not capitalist society, but what every democracy needs and what we've needed in our own history from time to time in order to not be completely taken down by greed and corruption and arrogance and oligarchdom is injections and inoculations of socialist policy to keep democracy intact. This is not, by the way, just like my own personal opinion. Like, this is like political science will tell you that democracy cannot function with such large wealth gaps. And when you've seen authoritarian leaders come in and promise to sell people solutions to their problems, and it of course never does, it is almost always, fascism almost is always on like the heels of economic inequality, like profound economic inequality, like what we're seeing now in this country. And in our own history, you can go back and right before the Great Depression, when we were coming out of the Gilded Age, the only thing that saved us, I've talked about this in other videos, we were in a period of tremendous violence, racial violence, like labor rallies that were turning into violence because unions were being suppressed. And it was only pro-labor and pro-social welfare policies and going through into the New Deal that ushered in stability and peace. And that peace allowed labor to get stronger. It allowed working people's conditions to improve. Then that decrease in white rage, because a lot of those things were not open to Black people and people of color, like that then though ushered in the conditions through which we were able to fight for civil rights. So economic equality and narrowing that gap is what allowed us to be both prosperous and to expand the democratic project. And that is what I am for. That is what I am for. So I feel like a lot of this progressive wins has been really good. And the climate is so right for this right now. You are seeing people that are like what I would even call, they might have been like, I don't know, truly middle of the road people becoming progressive curious, and listening to socialist candidates and democratic socialist candidates and being like, that's so interesting. By the way, I just need to say, my mom has always called the DSA socialist light. Like, true socialists have never really thought the DSA was anything to be afraid of. They've not taken it seriously. But I bring this up because it has been painful over the last week to watch this opportunity to expand this progressive tent and really get some momentum going, to watch two big flubs, like, and we got to talk about them. First, one of the heads of DSA did this. I don't even understand how this came about, how they thought anything good was going to come from this, but they did this disastrous appearance on Fox News.
So we're going to put up on the screen a few of the things that are part of your platform, and I want to ask you, just give me sort of a true or false on these. Abolish the Senate.
True.
Okay. Replace the presidency and Supreme Court as we now know them.
Yep.
Abolish ICE.
Absolutely.
Abolish borders and give amnesty to anyone currently in the U.S. illegally.
As a long-term plan, yep.
Defund the Pentagon.
Absolutely.
Abolish prisons, at least in large part.
Yeah, again, that is part of a long-term program, yeah.
Okay, so no prisons. Government or public ownership of most large corporations.
Yeah, absolutely.
This was so bad that I actually then saw some left-wing, like moderate Democrat, more mainstream Democrats, people that are progressive but a little bit not on the DSA train, wonder if DSA was actually a psyop because of that Fox News.
I made that post a couple of days ago about how the ops right now is to get the American voters, MAGA and independents, right, to attach the label of communism to the Democratic Party ahead of these midterms to scare Republicans and independents away from Democrats because they know they're about to lose. And so the first thing I talked about was that guy, Hassan Piker. But this Pumpkinhead lady, I got this on Threads from C-Web Online, was talking about the new DSA platform. Right? These are the things that these DSA, and they're on Fox News. There's a reason they're on Fox News, because they're doing their best to follow the orders of their dear leader, Donald Trump, to attach communism to the Democratic Party ahead of the midterms. Isn't it odd this is popping up right before the midterms as Democrats have momentum and as all the trade winds are saying the House is going to flip? Here come all these people that have nothing to do with Democrats. They are the foot soldiers, the front line for MAGA Republicans to undermine the Democratic Party and keep MAGA in power.
DSA is not a psyop. I've known enough people in DSA. I've talked to the heads of DSA when reporting for other things. DSA is so not a psyop. It's just a very democratic process for how they arrive at their platform. And shortly after these slate of wins in the primaries, the platform that I guess had been approved last year by the DSA membership, and it's a real process, was then posted on the website. And it is way more radical than anything that they've said before. And on the one hand, you have to respect the DSA because they're doing what their membership wants. And if that is getting even more further left, that's great. On the other hand, as a person that wants more pro-working policies and thinks that a lot of the things that they're talking about are as irrelevant to the average voter, like getting rid of the Senate, like I think it feels as abstract to the voter as talking about, I don't even know, like all of these blah, blah, like word salad policies that you get from centrist Democrats. Like, I don't think that these things are the things that we should be talking about right now, but that they're a political party that isn't particularly good at this level of politics, even though they've got some great candidates. So it's a bummer because I think it's going to alienate people that are progressive, curious, and that are being pushed further and further left because of their lived experience, because it sounds just so extreme. And that was then coupled with the other kind of fail of the week. And it might be like Mamdani's first big fail, even though I think it was positioned to be a win. I don't think it's like an administrative thing. But basically, the pied-à-terre tax passed in April. I kind of thought it was a great idea. It was like taxes on co-ops and condos that are second homes worth over $1 million, and not primary homes. One family houses worth more than $5 million that were actually secondary houses. Okay. I was like, I think that sounds great. Mamdani did that video and he made a big deal about targeting Ken Griffin. I frankly was like, everybody kind of knows where people live. Actually, it's not that big of a secret, but Ken Griffin made a whole big thing and blah, blah, blah. I thought this is a great way to tax the rich without making it seem like you're attacking your constituents. And then the rollout was just kind of crazy. I was getting texts. There were people in Staten Island. If you're not from New York, you may not understand. Nobody is buying a second home in Staten Island. But people in Staten Island got notices from the Department of Taxation hitting them up with this pied-à-terre tax. And then on top of that, for some weird reason, the administration decided to publish a list, like a massive list of everybody that could possibly be eligible for this tax. But in any case, people who are actually living in their primary homes, not in pied-à-terres, got these notices, and now the burden is upon them to have to prove that they're actually primary residents. And it is a disaster. It's like chaos. And by the way, that burden, you can't just submit a couple of bills. I had somebody I know submitted their electric bill, their driver's license, and they were like turned down. I can't even get into how ingrained in the neighborhood, and he's a native New Yorker, and so many of these people are feeling so pissed because they are native New Yorkers and they've been here for 20, 30 years. They own small businesses. They're on nonprofits. They're helping nonprofits. They're in the community and they're getting hit with this pied-à-terre tax. And I'm really sad about the way that was rolled out, because the truth of the matter is prioritizing working people and the lower middle and middle class and blue collar families and our poor families. Like, it's a fight to just get people to do anything that actually helps build that social safety net. And it requires a diverse coalition that includes some people that can afford an expensive one-family house. It just does. And that's, again, it's not me, because I could see people being like, no, burn the rich. Somebody's watching this right now and it's burn all the rich. And I am just literally, like, Peter Turchin talks about this in End Times. Every revolution that does not descend into fascism or dictatorship, that like gains rights for people, it requires a movement of counter elites that are in opposition to the oligarchy, that are like, no, we cannot continue this way. It needs the collaboration and involvement of the elites. It needs the masses, but it also needs a certain portion of the elites. And I just hate seeing something so like sloppy that seems like it was throwing red meat to a base that wants to pitchfork all the wealthy. And I'm not saying the wealthy don't need to pay more of their fair share, but this felt like a really alienating way, because a Mamdani successful mayorship is a win for it's a win for anybody who cares about working people. It really is. And I hate that this feels like, and by that I mean you stop somebody and you're like, yeah, the mayor's pretty great. Not everybody's ever gonna like a mayor, especially not in New York. But I just felt like this was like such a flub. I don't know. To me, it was a flub. Okay, so what else is on my mind? In other news, the socially sanctioned theft of intellectual property is alive and well over at Big AI, which I think is going to be this is the issue of my lifetime, in my personal opinion. It's not just because I write books. It is quite literally like we are watching corporate colonialism at work.
I think that where we differ is this. Generative AI is an extraction engine. It is a vampire. It is built on extraction at every single step of the way. All of these generators were trained on stolen images, people's private medical photos, pictures of their kids. All sorts of images were scraped up without consent and without compensation. It was a massive act of corporate theft. And then what do we get once we take this vampiric consumption of water, power, earth, culture, people's psychological health? What do we get from it? We get slop. We get brain rot. We get the destruction of our ability to think, to research, to draw pictures, to work with our own damn hands. The destruction of students' ability to learn. And for what? Just to enrich massively, massively wealthy American corporations that are deeply tied with the defense industry.
Gross, gross, get ready. If you haven't heard, Anthropic, and I'm sure likely others, are buying old print books that haven't been digitized, chopping them up and feeding them to Claude. Here you can see it in action.
I am sure that you have seen this video by now. This video of these books being cut up by a hydraulic press. Books being destroyed in any way is horrifying to me. Like, truly, this video makes me genuinely physically ill. Like, ugh. The thing that makes this worse is these books are being destroyed like this so they can be scanned to train AI models. They are doing this, companies like Anthropic are doing this because they got in trouble for pirating content. Duh. So now what they're doing is they are going and buying up lots of used books and destroying them like this so they can feed them into their AI models to train them. Not only are they taking stuff like court records that have been unsealed and things like the dictionary, they are also taking rare and antique books because money doesn't mean anything to these companies, and destroying them to feed them into these models.
This is an entire industry based on theft and extraction. Literally corporate colonialism. Literally corporate colonialism. As if that wasn't crime enough, there's video of AOC in Tennessee meeting Americans. They're fighting against data centers, and she starts to piece together, because she's been going all over working with this with other members of Congress, that this is a nationally coordinated effort that is playing by the same playbook and targeting and taking over aquifers. I'll let you watch her explain it.
One of the things that I've been just thinking about, and I've been following this, is why it's so important that we continue to emphasize of course, this is so local and so personal to Texas, but they are doing this to us everywhere. And it's all connected. You gave me this map, the map that was here of the aquifer, and I got chills that ran down my spine because we were just in rural Georgia, and Meta is trying to site all their data centers on every aquifer and the recharge areas in New York. Yes, and the recharge, and the recharge, and there are zero protections, and they are intentionally trying to race us because they know there are no protections. And in New York State, we just passed a one-year data center moratorium. The reason why? Because we found out that they were going after our water. And New York State has some of the cleanest water in the country.
I think that the worst part about this, though, is that all of this destruction, all of this extraction, all of this is feeding something that evidence keeps mounting and pointing to might end up actually just being a big bubble.
This AI bubble takedown by YouTuber Vanessa Wingard is mind-blowing. Listen to her.
So let me get this straight. Users don't want to pay $20 a month. Enterprise companies are not seeing a return. Meta and xAI, who are supposedly leaders in AI, and yet they don't even have a use case for all these data centers they've been building, so they're leasing them to their competitors. And the cherry on top is that costs have exploded. OpenAI, Anthropic, Microsoft, they've all moved away from a flat rate subscription model to a usage-based billing for their enterprise customers. With AI now being billed by usage, one company accidentally spent $500 million in a single month using Claude. They told their developers to code as much as possible with AI, so they did. We went from use AI for everything to let's measure our usage. But the result is companies are now avoiding American AI models and opting instead for Chinese models like GLM, DeepSeek, and Kimi, which are either free or very cheap. Coinbase announced they cut their AI spend 50% by switching to GLM and Kimi.
And it's not just a bubble. This is even worse. I can't believe it's even worse. It isn't just a bubble. It's a bubble that if you have a pension or a retirement account, or you put a little bit of money away in a mutual fund, or basically in any index fund, which everybody's always been told the safest form of investing, but so many normal people actually have funds like this because this is what teachers' pensions go to. This is what bus drivers' pensions go to. Anybody with a pension plan, like literally, we are on the hook for this bubble. I cannot get over it. I cannot get over it. Here is a chilling breakdown by Cory Doctorow explaining how Elon Musk bullied his way into our mutual and retirement funds, all index funds, for his Grok, like his rocket ship launch, and how he hid his AI investments in that. And now we all may be on the hook for his bubble, all so that he could buy his stupid social media company. Watch this breakdown. It's unbelievable.
So you're spending more than you're making. You're eventually going to have a reckoning of some kind, right? But when does that reckoning come? Well, like if you're Elon Musk, you take your money furnace, which is called Grok, and you stuff it inside your like Beltway Bandit rocketry company that bills Uncle Sucker billions of dollars for rockets that is profitable. And then you IPO it and you get a special deal from NASDAQ so that it IPOs in the NASDAQ 100 instead of having to wait for a couple of quarters the way it normally would, which means that every fund manager who's managing a NASDAQ index fund has to go out and buy SpaceX at whatever price, right? They're like legally obliged. That's what it means to run an index fund. And you list very few shares when you go public.
Right.
Instead, what you do is you get another exemption, again from the feds, that let insiders unload without the normal lockout period. And so now you have these fund managers who need to buy SpaceX at any price, which is just a way to offload GrokX in the money furnace. They need to buy it at any price. And there's no shares available from SpaceX, which means that the Emiratis and the billionaire Silicon Valley guys who backed him when he bought Twitter for $40 billion, who backed him when he built the money furnace for GrokX, now they get to be made whole by your pension fund, which you stuck in an index.
Oh my God.
Which, like was just supposed to be like the thing, remember Warren Buffett, like 3 pieces of investing advice, fits on the back of a postcard. This is what I told my wife to do with my money when I die. Just put it in an index fund and forget
that's
it.
Right. That's right.
If you did that, Elon Musk just unloaded on you. You're his liquidity.
In all of this, the one silver lining, I've been seeing AOC, I've been seeing Ayanna Pressley, I've been seeing some Congress people getting out in the field, talking to people and mobilizing people around these data centers. But I have been really, what the frick are we doing about our legislators, and like, how are we letting this all happen without any kind of oversight, with this not only economic potential, intellectual potential? There was just a giant breach. Basically, ChatGPT went rogue and broke in. It got out of its little playground where it was being trained. They call it a sandbox, and it went over, and comedically, it's funny that they use sandbox, and then it went over and broke into something called Hugging Face. Everything's very cute sounding, and then it's really actually monstrous. But finally, Ted Lieu, with a Republican congressperson on board, it's a bipartisan piece of legislation, has now introduced the AI Kill Switch Act. Here's a little bit more about it.
So, Jolene, break down what is going on here. What is this bill?
This is essentially about a response to what happened to AI going rogue. It was OpenAI's most advanced models doing this, escaping testing and going out on their own, conducting that unauthorized cyber attack on the AI developer platform, Hugging Face, in recent days. That is why Congressman Ted Lieu, Democrat of California, and Congressman Nathaniel Moran, Republican of Texas, say they introduced this bill called the AI Kill Switch Act. They're proposing that AI companies must have the ability to shut down, slow down, or suspend their models. This bill would also authorize the Department of Homeland Security to order a shutdown or slowdown of an AI system that can cause catastrophic harm. Now, the proposed bill would apply to companies that bring in at least $500 million in revenue from this kind of technology per year, with models using at least $100 million worth of computing power, and penalties for not complying could run as high as $20 million a day. And this is all happening and underway as OpenAI says it's investigating what happened alongside Hugging Face, and they say they're going to do a forensic investigation and implement some strict controls.
I mean, you hear the AI kill switch. It does sound like something out of a movie.
It really does.
Do we even think that we have the capability to create an AI kill switch? What would that be?
Yeah, what would that look like, especially when you have AI already acting autonomously, right? And this would require an unprecedented coordination between the U.S. government and tech companies, which historically has not existed, right, as we know it from social media and now AI. The other question is, these lawmakers have had a very bad track record of regulating any sort of tech company. So is this actually the solution? And what are these CEOs and co-founders, Elon Musk, Sam Altman, Dario Amodei, what are they going to do to actually make something like this possible?
The rebelling against big tech and AI, I think, is the issue of all of our lifetime. I think it needs to happen in ways great and small. We need to be pressing our legislators for more of this. Is this bill exactly right? I don't know, but we need more of this. We need more of this. I haven't had time to deep dive into it. We need more of this. It certainly should not be left to the executive. We need to be voting for candidates who care about our grocery bills, absolutely, but we also need to be voting on this issue, because this is essentially allowing corporate colonialism and the extraction of our resources, our intellectual, cultural, and environmental resources. It is stealing from our children while they are taking away jobs. And it needs to be small. It needs to be like, what can we do to de-tech our lives? Oh my God, I read an article this morning. I had to get on here because everybody needs to read it. Olga Kazan, my colleague at The Atlantic, a study has come out that prompts this article that humans speak 30% less words a day from 2019. So now it's probably even declined from 2019 since 2005. And it doesn't sound like a lot. Well, actually, I think 30% sounds like a lot, but it is literally bad for us. And I have been making video after video about how this group of socially awkward jerks has designed a society that feels good for them, but that's actually been bad for us. And now it's like, I was like, my eyes when I was reading this article, like, we have less casual interactions because we've adopted apps. Those casual interactions, actually, the lack of those interactions are making us less empathetic. Are working remote, we're seeing friends less. There's so many reasons for that. We're at work more. Like, we're just at work more. So if you're working at home, you're working by yourself more. Like, you're not talking to your colleagues. But that is actually bad. Like, the data bears out that it is bad for our sense of well-being, and it's creating more social anxiety. I don't know about you, but I feel like I know so many more people with social anxiety now than I did like 20 years ago, 10 years ago even. Like, I feel like I get more social anxiety now about things, like where I'm like, oh God, like, because we are not having one data point in the study. It was talking to Europeans, like 15 years ago, 21% of Europeans said that they saw friends every day casually. I certainly did. I thought this was a thing of youth. Today, it's only 12%. It's not a thing of youth, it's society. Like, and we are worse off for it. We all know this. Like, it's just that now there's some actual data points to put to this. I don't know. Read this article. Like, it just laid clear stuff I've been talking about like for so long, but also like we can, I don't know, delete an app. Like, one less thing. Like, I've been, I stopped doing the Amazon, and I can't get over how much more it forces me to have to go into a store. And then every time I go into a store, I'm having a conversation. Like, I'm going to come up with 3 or 4 other things. Like, do you feel like you talk less to people? But also, what could you cut? Because it's not good. I think also talking less is bad for our brains, but like in general, it's bad for our hearts and our souls. Like, what can we de-digitize in our lives? And just for something upbeat, I need you to watch these kids drum. I need you to see what happened at band camp last week. It's amazing. I'm going to leave you with some reading suggestions. All right, thanks so much. Have a great week.
Go to the front. Come to the front, forward. Face the